A warm good morning to one and all. I am Dr. Baswa Prabhu Jirli, dealing with module 2 of extension education. The module is dealing with philosophy and functions of extension education. When we come across the term philosophy, the names of great philosophers like Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Shri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Mahatma Gandhiji, so on and so forth, they start coming to our mind. Why these people are called philosophers? The basic reason is they love wisdom. Philosophy means love of wisdom. The term philosophy is derived from the Greek word known as philosophia, which means love of wisdom. So, the philosophers basically they respect various attributes which lead to the philosophical outcome. The first and foremost one is the knowledge. In our previous discussion, we have seen that, so how knowledge, information and data are different. Data, when it is interpreted, it becomes information. Information, when it is understood, becomes knowledge. The levels of understanding of each and every individual are totally different. That makes you different from one other. So, similarly, what type of insights that you are developing and it is having the relationship with the understanding that you have. Your insights are based on your understanding and what type of perceptions that you are going to develop. These perceptions are based on your previous experiences. Maybe you are having the positive or the negative type of experience and accordingly you are going to develop your perception. Then similarly in the line that is astuteness, intelligence, acumen and the good judgment are going to make you a philosopher. Now coming to the basic principles underlying the philosophy of extension. As Mildred Horton says that the first and foremost philosophy is individual is supreme in democracy. Now coming to the discussion on democracy, so what does it mean? In democracy we say that majority carries the point. So how this majority is formed? Because it is your opinion and opinion of somebody else, when it is clubbed together then it goes on becoming the majority. So when both of you are sharing a common opinion, so you are coming to a conclusion. In the same way, in extension we say that people should come together to form the common understanding, the common opinion regarding the issues under discussion. That is why each and every individual is important for extension. So that is how we say that individual is supreme in democracy. Then coming to the second principle, which says that home is the fundamental unit of civilization. So when we look into the process of civilization of human beings, so it starts from our home, because it is the first unit of training which trains the human race, because in third principle we are telling that family is the first training group of human race. The first trainers of every individual are their parents. Whatever the things that we get from our parents, that is going to continue throughout our lifetime. So what inputs that we are getting from the family, because in sociology we see that the primary institution is family. Apart from that there are 4 more institutions, there are 5 basic institutions that we come across in which family plays the dominant role. Then coming to the foundation of fourth principle, that is foundation of any permanent civilization rests on the partnership of man and land. There are good number of examples in the history. So if there is no relationship between man and land, the civilization itself has lost. So that is why extension is establishing the relationship between the man and the land, so that we can come out with the anticipated outcomes. Now coming to the philosophy of extension. The philosophy of extension is telling people how to think, not what to think. When we say that how the people should think, or when we say that what people should think. If we go for the second option, so the learner is limited with options. He is not having any additional options to think upon, because we have given him the direction that you have to think on 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we teach them how to think, so then he is having all possible options with him to think and to exhibit his creativity that is lying in his mind. So, to come out to bring that creativity out of an individual, we should teach people how to think, not what to think, because in case of what to think, it is going to limit the options that individual is having. According to the Einsminger, the philosophy of extension is helping people to help themselves. So, under this premise, we see that extension should work with the people, not for the people. So, what is the difference between working with the people and working for the people? When we work for the people, it means we are trying to serve them ready-made food. When we work with the people, we are asking them to adopt certain procedures so that they can develop their own food. So, there is a Chinese proverb which says that if a hungry man comes to you, don't feed him a fish, but teach him how to catch a fish. So, what is the difference here? So, if we are going to feed him a fish, we are feeding him for a day, but if we are going to teach him how to catch the fish, we are feeding him for the life. So, this is what is the difference between teaching people, helping people to help themselves. So, how extension can help the people? So, the basic thing is, if you are ready to help yourself, so there are many people come forward to help you. If you are not ready to help yourself, there is nobody. Even the philosophers say that if you are not ready to help yourself, even God will not help. Now, coming to the issue, how extension can help the people? Extension helps the people by providing appropriate information at appropriate time. Now, the second issue, how people can help themselves. So, people can help themselves by taking appropriate decisions which are required for them. So, how they can take the appropriate decisions? It is by getting the appropriate information from appropriate sources. So, that is what is the role of extension education. Then coming to the Einsminger, he points out 10 major issues as a philosophy of extension. The first one is, extension is teaching people what to want and ways to satisfy their wants. So, when we discuss about the needs and the wants, needs are the differences between what is and what ought to be. Most of the time, we are aware of what ought to be, but we are not aware of what is. So, that is where the conflict arises. So, that is why the first philosophy extension says, so you should understand the difference between what is and what ought to be. Extension is helping people to help themselves. This point we have already discussed now. Then coming to the third one, that is, extension is learning by doing and seeing is believing. So, based on this philosophy of extension, the two important methodologies have been developed. We try to identify them as the method demonstration and result demonstration, wherein in case of method demonstration, the skill is being taught to the people in the shortest possible time. In case of result demonstrations, the worth of a practice is shown over a period of time, because in some of the cases it may take more time, but it is going to deliver you the ultimate result that what you are in need of. Then coming to the next issue, that is, extension is development of individual, their leaders, their society and their world as a whole. So, while discussing the concept of leadership in our previous discussion, we have seen that how political leadership is different from various other types of leadership, and extension is looking for that type of leaders with certain qualities. If an individual is identifying his quality, so then he is going to be a leader, and that is how extension is going to help the people in identifying the qualities lying within them. Extension is working together to expand the welfare and happiness of the people. Extension always believes in working in groups rather than working with the individuals, because two is always better than one. So, when just now we were discussing about the democracy and how the majority carries the point. So, when people come together, that is the beginning. Extension is working in harmony with the culture of the people. So, India is a vast country with diverse cultural aspects and various cultural backgrounds. So, extension respects each and every culture of the people depending on the region where we are going to work with. Even within the state, even within the district, we find there are differences between different communities as far as the cultural aspects are considered. So, while working with these communities, especially in groups, so extension is going to have a special emphasis on understanding, identifying various cultural factors and working in harmony with the culture of the people. Extension is basically the living relationship and it respect and trust for each other, because we are talking of working in groups, we are talking of working together. So, then it has to be a living relationship. There should be trust between the individuals who are working together. Extension is a two-way channel. So, always we believe in forward as well as backward linkages. So, in our conceptual issues, we have already discussed about the forward as well as the backward linkages, which are going to say about the two-way channel of extension education. And extension is a continuous educational process. So, extension can never stop. It is a continuous process, because there should be always changes in the behavior of the people. As the behavior of the people changes, it starts demanding more, and extension is going to supply the according to the changing needs of the people. After a discussion on the philosophy of extension, so according to Dr. Dhama in 1965, the philosophy of extension, he has also pointed out 10 major issues, like the philosophy of extension includes self-help, people and the resources, cooperative effect, foundation in democracy, involves a two-way channel, it is based on creating interest and learning by doing, and voluntary participation of the people, persuasion and education of the people, program based on the attitude and values of the people. So, just I would like to emphasize on this particular aspect of attitude. What does this attitude means? Attitude is the mental predisposition of an individual for the stimulus. So, how we react to a stimulus when we get stimulus from the source. So, it solely depends on our previous experiences. So, when we have the better experience, so then definitely we are having a positive attitude. If our experience, the past experience is bitter for that particular type of stimulus, so then our attitude is going to be negative. So, when we are coming across for the first time, so we are trying to analyze and we are trying to develop attitude towards that particular stimulus. So, and at the end we say that extension is a never ending process. Now, in the context of home science, according to the e-course online of Indian Agricultural Statistical Research Institute of Indian Council of Agricultural Research, the philosophy of home science extension education aims at utilization of modern science to improve home living, study of humanities to improve the resources, then reach to increase the information and use of all resources to make home and family living effective parts of the society, and making natural and social forces useful towards realizing the time and energy to make life more beautiful, gracious and worthwhile. Now, coming to the functions of extension education. So, there are good number of functions that have been listed. So, we will be discussing them one by one. So, the first and foremost function is the process of planning. Planning identifies the needs of the people and sketch out a program to meet the identified needs. So, just before I was discussing about the need. Need is the difference between what is and what ought to be. In good number of cases, we are aware of what ought to be, what I want, that I am already aware of, but in many of the cases, I do not know where exactly I stand, what is my current position, because so if to analyze the need, if I want to analyze the need, I should know both these things, what is and what should be or what ought to be. So, because of this problem only, so we find a good number of problems in program planning as well as its implementation only. Now, coming to the plan. A plan is a statement of objectives, problems and situation. So, it is the situation, the first element of the program, the situation clearly spells out the gaps identified. That is what we try to identify them as a need. So, if this particular step is perfect or the situational analysis is perfect, then the subsequent processes are going to be more easier. Then coming to the second element, that is objectives. Objectives are the ends, expression of the ends towards which our goals are directed. So, what type of activities that we are going to accomplish based on the existing situation that we have spelled out in case of situation. Then coming to the problems, what are the existing problems, the gaps that we have identified, and how to overcome that is the last point, that is the solution. Now, coming to the second function of extension, this that is convergence. The function of extension service is to make all efforts to converge education and service aspects. So, when we talk of education as well as service aspects, so three more important elements that comes into picture are the convergence between the knowledge, attitude and skills. We have had enough discussion about the knowledge. Now, coming to the attitude and skills. Attitude is a mental predisposition, as I have already said, but the issues associated with the skills are not given much attention while planning and implementing these extension programs, because we think that with your past experience you must be having certain amount of skills, but it is not true always. Hence, the convergence of extension function needs to be justified by converging the education and service aspects with a special emphasis on knowledge, attitude and skills. Now, coming to the issue of coordination. Coordination brings the people with needs, institutions with programs and personnel with functions on one common platform to meet the common goal. So, having said this, it seems to be very simple, but when it comes to the practice, it is very difficult. So, why it is very difficult? Because we are dealing with the human element, and this human element is highly dynamic in nature. It is highly dynamic in nature. Having said this, because each and every individual has his own priorities, when we want to bring all these things on one common platform, that becomes an uphill task. So, that is why we need to establish the coordination, which is the very, very difficult task, and extension is working on these lines. So, that is how it becomes one of the important function of extension education. Then coming to the cooperation. It motivates planners, executors and users to work as a team with combined force to meet the goals. Extension always believes in holistic development of every individual, and altruism is one of the dimensions of extension education. When we are emphasizing on altruism, so we are emphasizing on the cooperation, because we want to bring in the holistic change, and that change is going to end with the development, and that is what everyone is interested in. So, the basic premise with which it is the concept of cooperation is working is, if you do not cooperate, you are going to perish. So, that is why extension emphasizes more on cooperation as a function. Then collaboration. It pulls the essential resources from all directions to make them accessible to achieve the goal. Extension always believes in group action rather than individualized efforts. So, this we have already been looking into in various other circumstances also. It is a part of Indian culture also to collaborate. So, over a period of time, we have seen this particular thing, how we are going to collaborate, and it is the internal strength of Indian culture also. And when we collaborate, it is going to give the strength, and it is going to increase the people's participation also. Then coming to the next function of extension, that is facilitation. It plays a role of catalyst in the implementation of development program and smoothens the program. So, the process of facilitation is to make the job of others easy. So, that is why we need this particular function of facilitation. So, there are different in different contexts we find different types of facilitations. in case of psychotherapy, so the facilitator is going to help the members to understand the feeling of others. So that is what is the role of playing the mediator, so that you can better understand your counterparts. In case of education, the facilitator helps the needy student to help the issue to help him to understand the issue under consideration, because there might be individual differences in understanding a particular issue. So that is where the role of extension comes, and the function of extension, that is facilitation. In case of non-formal education, its essential feature that what we have seen in our previous discussion, wherein it is conducted on the principles of the formal education, but with good number of relaxations. What is that relaxation that we are referring to? In case of non-formal education, there is no fixed curriculum, there is no fixed classes, there are good number of such differences that we come across. So wherein the role of facilitator becomes more and more important. Extension workers are going to act as a facilitators, because there are needy people who are making an effort to understand the issues. So that is where the role of facilitator comes into the picture. There is a concept of facilitated communication specially meant for the people with some communication disorders or with some communication disabilities, where people are going to be facilitated to understand more and more and to get appropriate feedback. So based on this discussion, we can say that in case of extension, facilitation is playing the role of bringing two ends together to achieve the common goal. So if the ends are separate, so then we cannot achieve our objectives. When the ends are coming together, so we can achieve a common goal for the cause of the society. Then coming to the function of monitoring, it keeps an eye on the progress of the program for the purpose of overcoming the obstacles. And the process of monitoring starts after implementation of the program, and it runs till completion of the program. The basic objective with which that we are going for monitoring is, so how the program is being implemented, how extension programs are being implemented. So, and we are in a regular, through this process, through monitoring, we are getting the regular feedback from its various units of implementation of the program, so that we can overcome the obstacles and we can smoothen the process of implementation of the program. And the next element is the evaluation. Evaluation is quantitative assessment of the quality and quantity of the progress at periodic intervals to consider any of issues that are not met. So when we say that evaluation, there are three types of evaluation that we come across. The first one is ex ante evaluation. Ex ante evaluation, generally we take it before beginning of a program, before implementation of a program. So that is going to be a type of benchmark information for taking up an extension program. So wherein we are going to analyze the needs, we are going to analyze the situation that is existing. So then the second one is the concurrent evaluation. Concurrent evaluation, it is nothing but the process of monitoring that we have discussed in our previous point, and it is a continuous process after implementation of the program, and it goes up to the expiry of the program. Then the last type of evaluation that we come across is ex post facto evaluation. So this particular type of evaluation begins immediately after completion of the implementation of the program. Once the project period is over, we go for ex post facto evaluation. It has a reference in case of ex ante as well as concurrent evaluation. So based on the outcomes of ex ante and concurrent evaluation, we are going to evaluate the ex post facto evaluation, wherein we will be comparing the outcomes based on the existing situation and the problems that we encountered and how we overcome the existing problems as well as the problems that we encountered during implementation of the programs are all going to be part of your ex post facto evaluation. Now coming to the last element of extension function, that is networking. Network is the process of linking two or more individuals, groups, institutions, etc. together. Since beginning, we have been listening to the concept of working together, and the function of extension believes in that because extension ensures the network between various units of development. It may be individual, it may be institution, or it may be any agency which is ensuring the concept of development. Extension wants to establish the relationship between all these units, then only we can achieve the desired goal. If we are going to establish network successfully, half of the concept of extension education is already over. Rest of the things will be taken care of by various other processes of extension education. So, now coming to the conclusion part of the discussion on philosophy and functions of extension education. So, in the first part we have seen that the concept of philosophy, where philosophy means it is love of wisdom, and in extension, the philosophy of extension, which says that teaching people how to think, not what to think, and learning by doing and seeing is believing. So, with these philosophy, the concept of extension is working. Now, coming to various functions of extension that we discussed so far, that includes the planning, convergence, coordination, cooperation, collaboration, facilitation, monitoring, evaluation, and network. So, these are some of the functions of extension education. By understanding these processes, extension education and service efforts can be made more successful.